The morning they came to tell us, I was making blueberry pancakes. I remember that detail because it seemed so ordinary at the time, the sizzle of batter on the griddle, the smell of coffee percolating in the old pot Harold bought me for our 30th anniversary. Sunlight was streaming through the kitchen window, illuminating dust motes that danced in the air like tiny spirits. I was humming, actually humming, some old song from the 60s that I couldn't even name. Harold was at the table doing the crossword puzzle, his reading glasses perched on the end of his nose, that familiar crease between his eyebrows that appeared whenever he concentrated. After 53 years of marriage, I knew every expression on that face. Every wrinkle told a story, laugh lines around his eyes from a lifetime of bad jokes, the deep groove on his forehead from years of worrying about bills, about the kids, about whether the roof would make it through another winter. We were 76 years old, both of us. Our bodies weren't what they used to be. My knees ached when it rained. Harold's back seized up if he bent over too long in the garden, but we had each other. We had our routines. We had our little house on Maple Street, the one we'd bought in 1972 when it cost less than a new car does now. The house wasn't much. 1,200 square feet, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom that Harold had retiled himself in 1985. The front porch sagged a little on the left side. The furnace was temperamental, but it was ours. We'd raised our 3 children in that house. We'd painted every wall, planted every flower in the garden, fixed every creaky floorboard. The knock on the door came at 9:30. I wiped my hands on my apron and walked through the living room, past the piano where Jessica had practiced scales for 8 years, past the bookshelf Harold built from scrap lumber, past the photographs on the wall, graduations, weddings, grandchildren's first birthdays. When I opened the door, all 3 of them were standing there. Marcus, our oldest, at 51, Jessica at 48, and Tyler, our baby, at 45. My heart did that thing it always did when I saw my children, a little leap of joy, of pride, of love so fierce it sometimes made my chest ache. But something was wrong. I could see it in Marcus's face, in the way he wouldn't quite meet my eyes. Jessica was biting her lower lip, something she'd done since she was 3 years old whenever she was nervous. Tyler stood behind them, hands shoved in his pockets, looking at his shoes. Mom, Marcus said, we need to talk. Those 4 words. I've replayed them in my mind 1,000 times since that morning. The way he said them, flat, rehearsed, like he'd practiced in the car on the way over. Of course, sweetheart. Come in. Come in. I'm making pancakes. Are you hungry? They filed into the house, into the living room where they'd opened Christmas presents and watched Saturday morning cartoons and argued over the TV remote. They sat on the couch, the same floral couch we'd bought at a yard sale in 1979, reupholstered twice. Never quite comfortable, but too full of memories to replace. Harold came out of the kitchen, confused. What's all this? Thought you kids were coming for dinner Sunday, Dad, Marcus said. Mom, sit down, please. We sat. I remember the feeling in my stomach, like ice water spreading through my veins. That instinct mothers have. Something was terribly wrong. Marcus pulled out a folder from his messenger bag. Legal papers. Official-looking documents with text too small for my old eyes to read without my glasses. We've been talking, he began, the 3 of us, for months now, and we've made a decision. About the house. What about the house? Harold asked. His voice was steady, but I saw his hand tremble as he set down his coffee cup. Jessica spoke up, her voice too bright, too cheerful. We're worried about you guys. This place is getting to be too much for you to handle. The stairs, the yard work, the maintenance. You're not getting any younger. And we're selling it, Marcus interrupted. We're selling the house. The words hung in the air like smoke. I heard them. I understood the individual words. But together, they made no sense. Selling? I repeated. But it's our house, actually, Marcus said, and his tone shifted, became clinical, detached, like he was explaining something to a client at his law firm. It's not anymore. He opened the folder, showed us the papers. 2 years ago, when Dad had that health scare and you were worried about medical bills, you signed a power of attorney. Remember? You gave us legal authority to handle your affairs if you became incapacitated. But we're not incapacitated, Harold said. His voice was louder now, confused. I'm fine. We're both fine. The document doesn't require incapacitation for us to act on your behalf. Last year, you also signed papers transferring the deed to the house into a family trust. You thought it was for estate planning. To avoid probate, I remembered. Marcus had brought the papers over. Said it was smart planning. Would make everything easier for us when the time came. We trusted him. He was our son, a lawyer. He knew about these things. The trust has 3 trustees, Marcus continued. Jessica, Tyler, and me. We voted 2-1 to sell the property. Tyler spoke for the first time, his voice barely above a whisper. I voted no. I want you to know that. I told them this was wrong. Jessica shot him a look. Tyler, we agreed. I never agreed to this. Tyler stood up, his face flushed. I said I'd go along with looking at options, maybe finding them a nice assisted living place, but I never said we should sell their house out from under them. It's already done, Marcus said calmly. We accepted an offer yesterday. A developer is buying the property. They're tearing down the house and building a duplex. Settlement is in 30 days. The room tilted. I couldn't breathe. Harold made a sound I'd never heard before, a kind of wounded animal noise. You can't, I whispered. You can't do this. We can. And we have, Marcus said. We found you a place. Shady Oaks Senior Community. They have a studio apartment available. Assisted living, meals included, activities, medical staff on site. It's actually really nice. We don't need assisted living, Harold said. His voice was shaking now, thick with something that might have been tears or rage or both. We're not invalids. This is our home, Dad. Be realistic. How long do you think you can keep managing? What happens when one of you falls? When you can't drive anymore? This house is a ticking time bomb of liability. Liability? I stood up, my whole body trembling. This is our life. Our memories. Every inch of this house is falling apart, Marcus interrupted. The foundation is cracked. The roof needs replacing. The plumbing is ancient. We're doing you a favor. The money from the sale will go into a managed account. We'll handle all your expenses. You won't have to worry about anything. How much? Harold asked quietly. What? How much is the developer paying for our house? Marcus hesitated. That's not really how much, Marcus. $750,000. The number hit me like a physical blow. Our little house, the one we bought for $42,000 in 1972, worth $750,000, and the assisted living place? Harold asked. How much does that cost? $3,000 a month for the studio. So, you're taking our $750,000 house and putting us in a studio apartment that costs $36,000 a year. Harold's voice was cold. Now, flat. What happens to the rest of the money? It's managed by the trust. For your care. For when you need more intensive assistance. Medical expenses. Funeral costs eventually. Funeral costs. I repeated numbly. You're already planning our funerals, Mom. Don't be dramatic. We're being practical. We're protecting you. Something in me broke then. Maybe it was the way he said dramatic, like I was being irrational, like my grief over losing my home was some kind of unreasonable tantrum. Get out. I said, Mom, get out of my house. All of you. Except Tyler. Tyler, you can stay. Marcus stood up, straightening his tie. Fine. The movers will be here 3 weeks from today. You can take personal items, but all the furniture stays. It's included in the sale. The furniture? Harold stood up now, and I saw something in his eyes I'd only seen a handful of times in 53 years. Pure fury. My grandfather's dining table? The bookshelf I built? Our bed? Included in the sale, Marcus repeated. The buyers wanted a furnished property. We got a better price. Jessica was crying now. Quietly, but she didn't say anything. Didn't contradict her brother. Just sat there crying her useless tears. Tyler walked over to us, put his hand on Harold's shoulder. I'll help you figure this out. We'll fight this. There has to be a way. There isn't. Marcus said from the doorway. It's legal. It's done. The sooner you accept that, the easier this will be. Then they left. Marcus and Jessica walked out of our house, out of our lives, and I stood there in the living room where my children had learned to walk, watching them go. Tyler stayed. Sweet Tyler, our youngest, who'd always been the sensitive one. The one the other kids teased for crying at movies. He was crying now too. I didn't know they were going to do this, he said. I swear to God, I didn't know until 2 weeks ago, and I've been trying to talk them out of it. Marcus won't listen. He says it's the responsible thing to do. Jessica's going along with whatever he says because her husband lost his job and they're desperate for money. Harold's voice was hollow. This is about money? Tyler looked at the floor. Marcus and Jessica get to manage the trust. They collect fees, 5% annually of the total assets. The math clicked into place. 5% of $750,000. $37,500. Every year. For the rest of our lives, we'd been sold. Our own children had sold us. The next 3 weeks were a blur of terrible, surreal moments. The movers came. Strangers in our house, putting stickers on our furniture, packing our lives into boxes. They were efficient, professional, almost kind. That made it worse somehow. Tyler helped us sort through 53 years of accumulated life. What do you take? What do you leave behind? The studio apartment at Shady Oaks was 300 square feet. We could bring clothes, a few photographs, small personal items. That was it. The piano stayed. Jessica's piano, where she'd practiced for 8 years. Dreaming of being a concert pianist until she discovered boys and basketball players and gave it all up for a boy named Derek who broke her heart junior year. The dining table stayed. Harold's grandfather had made it in 1923 from oak he'd cut himself. 8 feet long, scarred with decades of family dinners, homework sessions, art projects. I'd served Thanksgiving dinner at that table 49 times. Our bed stayed. The one we'd bought when we got married. Where all 3 of our children had been conceived. Where we'd made love and argued and reconciled and slept curled around each other for 53 years. Everything stayed. We packed our clothes. Some photograph albums. Harold's watch collection. My mother's jewelry. A few books. Tyler helped us carry the boxes to his car, making trip after trip, both of us pretending not to notice Harold sitting in the empty living room, crying. I'd never seen my husband cry before. Not when his mother died. Not when he lost his job in the recession of 2008. Not even when Marcus got sick with pneumonia as a baby and we thought we might lose him. But he cried. When the movers took the bookshelf he'd built, the day we left. I walked through every room one last time. The kitchen where I'd made 30,000 meals. The bathroom where I'd given the kids baths in the tub. Where Jessica had locked herself in for 2 hours when she was 14 because a boy didn't ask her to homecoming. The bedrooms where they'd slept and grown and dreamed and become people. The backyard where Harold had taught Marcus to throw a baseball. Where we'd had barbecues and birthday parties and one perfect summer evening in 1984 when fireflies filled the air like magic. And the kids ran around with mason jars, trying to catch them. All of it. Gone. Tyler drove us to Shady Oaks. Neither of us spoke. What was there to say? The facility was actually nice, as these places go. Clean, well-maintained. The staff smiled a lot. The studio apartment had new carpet, a small kitchenette, a bathroom with grab bars and a walk-in shower. A window that looked out onto a courtyard. It smelled like antiseptic and old people. This wasn't our home. It was a place where people came to wait for death. Tyler helped us unpack our boxes, hung some pictures on the walls, set up the small TV, tried to make conversation. Finally, he hugged us both and left, promising to visit soon. We sat on the narrow twin beds. They didn't have a double bed available and looked at each other. What do we do now? I asked. Harold didn't answer. He just reached across the space between the beds and took my hand. That night, I couldn't sleep. The bed was wrong. The sounds were wrong. Somewhere down the hall, someone was crying out in their sleep. The fluorescent light in the bathroom hummed. The whole building had that institutional quiet that's somehow louder than noise. At T2 in the morning, I got up and went to the window, looked out at the courtyard with its neat pathways and benches and carefully maintained flower beds that somehow had no personality, no soul. Harold came and stood beside me. I can't do this, he said quietly. I know. I'd rather die than live here. I know. We stood there in the dark, holding hands, and I think we both understood that something fundamental had broken. Not just our trust in our children. Something deeper. Our belief that the world made sense. That if you were good people, if you loved your children and sacrificed for them and did your best, that somehow you'd be taken care of. We'd been fools. The next morning, we went to breakfast in the communal dining hall, sat at a table with strangers who tried to make small talk, asked where we were from, how many children we had, what we used to do. We're from Maple Street, Harold said. We have 3 children. I used to be an electrician. My wife was a teacher. Used to be. Past tense. Like we were already dead. After breakfast, we went back to our room, sat on our separate beds, stared at the walls. This was our life now. This room. These institutional meals. This waiting. I'm not staying here, Harold said suddenly. I looked at him. What choice do we have? We leave. And go where? We don't have a house. We don't have money. Marcus and Jessica control the trust. We can't even access our own money without their permission. Harold stood up, started pacing the small room. We have Social Security. 2 checks, $3,200 a month combined. It's not much, but it's ours. They can't touch that $3,200? Harold, we can't rent an apartment for that. Not in this city. Not anywhere. So we leave the city. And go where? He stopped pacing, looked at me with an expression I'd seen before, the same look he'd had when he decided to start his own electrical business in 1979. When he decided we should adopt Tyler even though we were 41 years old and everyone said we were crazy. Determination. I don't know yet, he said. But anywhere is better than here. That afternoon, Tyler called, asked how we were settling in. I could hear the guilt in his voice, the helplessness. We're leaving, Harold told him. What? Dad, you just got there. We're not staying in this place. We're taking our Social Security and we're leaving. But where will you go? How will you live? We'll figure it out. Dad, please. Just give it a chance. Maybe it won't be so bad, Tyler. Harold's voice was gentle but firm. I love you. You're a good son. The only one, apparently. But we're not staying here. We're not going to sit in this room and wait to die while our other children get rich off our house. Silence on the other end of the line. Then, quietly, I understand. What can I do to help? Nothing. This isn't your burden. You voted against this. You tried. That's more than the others did. At least let me give you some money. No, we'll be fine. But we weren't fine. The next week, we left Shady Oaks, just packed our few belongings and walked out. The staff tried to stop us, said we'd signed a contract, that we couldn't just leave. Harold told them to send the bill to Marcus. We took a bus to the cheaper side of town, started looking for places to rent. But everywhere wanted first month, last month, security deposit, credit checks, references, proof of income. We had Social Security checks and no credit history recent enough to matter. Every landlord looked at us, 2 old people with no job, no assets, and shook their heads. We spent our savings on cheap motels. $29 a night for a room with stained carpet and a bathroom that smelled like mildew. We'd eat cereal for breakfast, skip lunch, split a $1 menu hamburger for dinner. The money ran out faster than we expected. After 2 weeks, we couldn't afford even the cheap motels. That's how we ended up on the benches. Lincoln Park had 12 benches along the main walking path. We learned this on our 3rd night sleeping outside. During the day, we'd walk around, trying to look purposeful, like we were just out for a stroll. 2 senior citizens enjoying the autumn weather. No one looked at us too closely. Old people are invisible in that way. At tea night, we'd find a bench, try to sleep sitting up, our bags of belongings at our feet. Harold would doze for a while, then wake when his back spasmed. I'd drift off and dream I was in our old house, then wake to the cold reality of a park bench and want to cry. We didn't tell Tyler, didn't tell anyone. What could they do? Tyler had his own family, his own bills. We wouldn't burden him with this. The first week was the hardest. Learning where the public restrooms were that didn't lock at sunset. Finding the churches that served free meals. Figuring out which places we could sit for a while without getting chased away. There was a McDonald's on 4th Street where the manager was kind. Let us sit for hours nursing a single coffee. The library on Elm became our daytime sanctuary. Warm, clean bathrooms, places to sit, We'd read newspapers, do puzzles, pretend we had somewhere to go. Other homeless people helped us learn the rules. There was a woman named Dot, maybe 65, who'd been on the streets for 3 years after her apartment building was condemned. She showed us which shelters had beds available, which soup kitchens had the best food, where to get free clothes when ours were out. "How did you end up here?" she asked one day. Harold told her about the house, the children, the betrayal. Dot nodded like this didn't surprise her at all. "Families," she said. "That's how most of us end up here. Families. There was a man named Ray who used to be a teacher. Lost his job, lost his apartment, lost everything when his schizophrenia medication stopped working and he couldn't keep it together anymore. He shared his cigarettes with Harold even though we told him we didn't smoke. There was a young woman, couldn't have been more than 30, with a baby, living in her car until it got repossessed. Now she pushed all their belongings in a shopping cart and sang lullabies to her daughter at night. These were our neighbors now, our community, people who'd fallen through the cracks of a society that had no use for them anymore. The nights got colder. October turned to November. The leaves fell from the trees in Lincoln Park. The tourists stopped coming. Just us and the other regulars, huddled on our benches, trying to survive until morning. Harold's cough got worse, started deep in his chest, rattling like there was something broken inside. I begged him to go to the emergency room, but he refused. "They'll call Marcus," he said. "They'll send us back to that place. You could have pneumonia." "I'm fine." But he wasn't fine. I could see it in the way he moved, the way he couldn't catch his breath after walking up the library steps, the way his face looked gray in the morning light. I wanted to call Tyler, wanted to beg him for help. But pride is a funny thing. Even when you're sleeping on benches, even when you're cold and hungry and scared, pride can keep you silent. It was the Tuesday before Thanksgiving when everything changed. We were at our usual bench, number 7, under the oak tree, when a woman approached us. Mid-40s, professional clothes, carrying a clipboard. My first instinct was to leave. Social workers meant questions, meant systems, meant eventually ending up back at some facility, but Harold was too tired to run. "Excuse me," she said gently. "I'm Rebecca Chen. I work with the Coalition for Housing Justice. We're doing outreach, trying to connect people with services. Would you mind if I sat down?" "We're fine," I said automatically. She smiled. Not the pitying smile most people gave us. A real smile. "I'm sure you are. But would you mind talking to me anyway? I'm supposed to fill out these forms, and my boss gets cranky if I don't meet my quota." Something about her directness made me relax a little. She sat down, pulled out her forms. "Names?" Harold and I looked at each other. Gave her our real names. What did it matter anymore? "How long have you been housing insecure?" "Is that what we are?" Harold asked. "Housing insecure? It's the official term." "How long?" "For weeks," I said. "Give or take." She looked up from her clipboard. Really looked at us. "You're new to this, that obvious. Your clothes are clean. Your hair is brushed. You're staying together." Most couples split up within the first week. "It's easier alone. We've been married 53 years, Harold said. "We're not splitting up now." Rebecca wrote something on her form. "Do you have any income?" "Social Security. $6,400 a month combined." Her pen stopped moving. "You have income of $6,400 a month and you're sleeping on a bench." And then, like a dam breaking, I told her everything. About the house, the children, the trust, the assisted living facility we couldn't bear, our failed attempts to find housing, the impossibility of starting over at 76 with nothing but Social Security checks. She listened without interrupting, took notes. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "What your children did," she finally said, "was probably legal, but it was absolutely wrong. And I think I might be able to help you. Hope is a dangerous thing when you've lost everything. It hurts to let yourself feel it. The Coalition runs several programs," Rebecca continued. "One of them is transitional housing for seniors who've experienced housing displacement. Small apartments, subsidized rent based on income. It's not perfect, but it's a roof." "How much?" Harold asked. 30% of your income. For you, that would be about $1,900 a month. It includes utilities, $1,900. We'd have 2,700 left over for food, medicine, everything else. It was tight, but it was possible. What's the catch? I asked. Because there's always a catch. The waiting list is usually 6 months. But she tapped her pen against her clipboard. I just had a unit open up yesterday. Ground floor, 1 bedroom, available immediately. The person ahead of you on the list turned it down because they wanted something bigger. We'll take it, Harold said immediately. Don't you want to see it first? We're sleeping on a bench, I said. We'll take it. Rebecca smiled. Come on, let me drive you over there. The apartment was in a building on the east side of town. Old but well maintained. The unit was small, maybe 400 square feet, but it had a real bed, a kitchenette, a bathroom with a shower, a window that looked out onto a small courtyard with a scraggly tree. It was the most beautiful place I'd ever seen. We can move in today, Harold asked, his voice cracking. Assuming the background check clears and you can pay the first month's rent. Yes. We paid. Filled out the paperwork. Signed the lease with shaking hands. That night, we slept in a real bed for the first time in a month. I cried into my pillow, trying to be quiet so Harold wouldn't hear. But he was crying too. The apartment became our haven, our new start. We furnished it slowly from thrift stores and yard sales. A small table and 2 chairs. A lamp, a coffee maker. Nothing matched, but everything was ours. Chosen by us. Paid for with our money. We established new routines. Coffee in the morning at our little table. Walks in the neighborhood. Tuesday dinners at the community center where other seniors gathered. Harold's cough finally went away once we were warm and dry. We didn't contact Marcus or Jessica. They'd called a few times, left messages. Tyler told us they were upset that we'd left Shady Oaks, that we were being irresponsible. But they didn't look for us. Didn't try very hard to find us. That told us everything we needed to know. Tyler visited when he could. Brought groceries. Helped Harold fix the leaky faucet. Never asked why we hadn't called him during the worst of it. I think he understood. Some things you have to survive on your own. We rebuilt our life. Piece by piece. It wasn't the life we'd had. We'd lost our house, our furniture, our sense of security. But we had each other. We had our small apartment. We had our independence. And then, 6 months after we moved in, Tyler called with news. You need to sit down, he said. We sat. Marcus is being investigated by the State Bar Association. Someone filed a complaint about how he handled your trust. Who filed the complaint? Harold asked. I did. My heart swelled. Our youngest son. Our defender. I documented everything, Tyler continued. The way they rushed the sale. The fees they collected. The fact that they put you in assisted living when you didn't need it, essentially to justify their management of the trust. I sent it all to the Bar Association and to the State Attorney General's office. What will happen? I asked. I don't know yet. But there's more. Jessica's husband Derek, he lost his job 8 months ago, remember? Yes. He's been gambling. Online poker. Lost everything. They're being foreclosed on. They were counting on the trust management fees to keep them afloat. But the Attorney General froze the account pending investigation. I should have felt satisfaction. Some kind of vindication. But all I felt was tired. And Marcus? Harold asked. His firm is asking him to resign. Even if he doesn't lose his law license, the publicity is killing them. Big corporate firm can't have a partner under investigation for exploiting his elderly parents. We were quiet. I'm sorry, Tyler said. I know they're still your kids. I know this must hurt. It does, I said. But not the way you think. The truth was, I was grieving. Not for what was happening to Marcus and Jessica now, but for who they used to be. For the children who'd climbed into our bed during thunderstorms. Who'd hugged us goodbye on their first days of school. Who'd called us from college. Homesick and young and still needing us. Somewhere along the way, those children had disappeared. Replaced by adults who could look at their parents sleeping on benches and still justify what they'd done. That was the real loss. Not the house. The children. A year passed. The investigation concluded. Marcus was suspended from practicing law for 3 years. Jessica and Derek lost their house, filed for bankruptcy. Tyler told us they blamed us somehow. Said we'd ruined their lives by refusing to cooperate. By not staying at Shady Oaks where we belonged, the trust was dissolved. The money what was left after Marcus and Jessica's management fees and the cost of storing our furniture that eventually had to be sold was returned to us. It wasn't much. Maybe 200,000 of the original 750,000. We put it in a simple savings account. Decided we'd leave it for Tyler's kids, for college or a down payment on a house or whatever they needed. We didn't need it. We had enough. Our apartment, our social security, our simple life. Marcus and Jessica didn't call anymore, didn't visit. We heard things through Tyler. Marcus got a job as a consultant, making a fraction of what he used to earn. Jessica went back to work as a dental hygienist. They were surviving, diminished but surviving. Sometimes I thought about reaching out, about calling them, about trying to rebuild something, but then I'd remember Harold's face when they told us they'd sold our house. The way Marcus had looked at us, not like his parents, but like problems to be managed, assets to be liquidated. And I'd decide to wait. Maybe someday they'd apologize. Maybe someday they'd understand what they'd taken from us. But probably not. 2 years after we moved into our apartment, on a Tuesday morning in October, Harold didn't wake up. He died in his sleep, peacefully, still holding my hand the way we'd slept every night for 55 years. The funeral was small. Tyler and his family, some neighbors from the apartment building, Rebecca from the coalition, who'd become a friend, Dot and Ray from the park, dressed in their cleanest clothes, who'd somehow heard and come to pay their respects. Marcus and Jessica showed up late, stood in the back, didn't speak to me, left before the service ended. Tyler gave the eulogy, talked about Harold's kindness, his work ethic, the way he could fix anything, the way he loved his family even when they didn't deserve it. I sat in the front row of the funeral home, not the expensive one, but the simple place on 4th Street, and thought about all the years, all the moments, all the ordinary days that had added up to a life. We'd lost so much. Our house, our furniture, our belief that family was forever. But we'd had each other until the end. We'd survived. We'd found a way forward. That was more than Marcus or Jessica could say. After the funeral, Tyler helped me back to my apartment, offered to stay, but I told him to go home to his family. I needed to be alone. I made tea in the little kitchenette, sat at our small table, looked around at our modest apartment with its thrift store furniture and mismatched dishes and single window looking out onto the courtyard. It wasn't much, but it was honest. It was ours. We'd built it ourselves from nothing at 76 years old. Marcus and Jessica had taken our house, but they couldn't take that. On the table was an envelope. Tyler had left it. Inside was a check, $20,000. A note in his handwriting. Dad would have wanted you to have this. It's from the trust settlement. Use it for whatever you need. I love you, Mom. I held the check for a long time. $20,000. A fortune when you're living on Social Security. A pittance compared to what we'd lost. But I didn't need it. I'd learned to live on less. Learned that happiness wasn't about money or houses or things. The next day, I went to the bank, deposited the check into Tyler's children's college fund, added a note, from Grandpa Harold, for your dreams. Then I walked home to my small apartment, made coffee, sat by the window, watched a scraggly tree in the courtyard lose its leaves, and I thought about karma. Not the dramatic kind. Not the kind where bad people get punished and good people are rewarded. Real karma. The kind where you become what you practice. Marcus and Jessica had practiced greed. Practiced seeing people, even their parents, as resources to be managed. And now they lived in that world they'd created, where nothing was certain, where everyone was a potential threat, where love was conditional on usefulness. Harold and I had practiced something different. We'd practiced resilience, partnership, the belief that you could lose everything and still have enough, as long as you had each other. And we'd been right. Marcus and Jessica might have gotten our money, but we'd gotten our dignity. In the end, I think we won. 3 years later, I still live in the same apartment. I'm 79 now. My knees are worse. I need a cane on bad days. But I'm here. Tyler visits every Sunday. Brings his kids. They call me Grandma and show me their school projects and eat the cookies I bake in my little oven. I volunteer at the Coalition for Housing Justice twice a week. Help Rebecca with intake forms. Talk to people who are where Harold and I were. Tell them it gets better. Show them it's possible to rebuild. Sometimes I see Marcus and Jessica around town. We don't speak. They look older than they should, worn down by whatever weight they're carrying. I feel sorry for them sometimes. It must be exhausting, living with what they did. But mostly I don't think about them at all. I think about Harold, about our 55 years together, about the life we built twice, once when we were young, and once when we were old. I think about the people who helped us when we had nothing. Dot, Ray, Rebecca, the strangers who showed more kindness than our own children. I think about the lessons I learned sleeping on benches in Lincoln Park, that you can survive anything if you're not alone, that houses are just buildings, but homes are something you carry inside you, that children can break your heart, but they can't break your spirit unless you let them. And I think about karma, real karma, the kind where you wake up every day and have to live with who you've chosen to become. I chose to become someone who survives, who helps others, who loves fiercely even when love isn't returned. Marcus and Jessica chose something else, and that, in the end, is their punishment and my peace. Last week, I got a letter from Jessica. She didn't apologize, didn't ask for forgiveness, just wrote to tell me she's in therapy, learning about something called financial exploitation of the elderly, coming to terms with what she did. She wondered if maybe someday we could talk. I haven't written back yet. Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. I'm learning that some things don't need resolution. Some wounds don't need to heal. Some relationships can just end. And that's okay. Because I have enough. This small apartment. Tyler's Sunday visits. My work at the coalition. The memory of Harold's hand in mine. It's not the life I imagined at 76, but it's mine. And nobody can sell it out from under me.